Then I'd like to present the first speaker, and we will have now a number of very brief presentations. And the first one is my friend, Professor Michael Faber. And please, Michael, you are focusing on the global consensus and will explain what it is.
Michael, I don't know. Michael, are you there?
If he is not there, then we go to the next speaker and hope that he will join in a minute. I hope that Jack Ames is present.
I see him.
Oh,
he's on the screen.
Michael is on the screen.
Jack is on the screen.
Jack is on the screen. So, Jack, you get the floor earlier than expected, and you will talk about the power of sustainable procurement.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. My name is Jack Ames, Municipality of The Hague, participant in the National Beton Accord in the Netherlands, and also member of what we call the Friday Group, which is the group of all public subscribers of this concrete agreement, the Beton Accord. And actually this group started already in the pre-stage of this agreement in 2016, where we realized with all public clients together that if we cooperate, we can have much more influence. And on the next slide, you can see all the participants in this group, which is some of the national ministries, including their departments of public works for rail and roads and water and buildings, all 12 regional authorities in the Netherlands, the provinces, some of the major cities. And actually already during the negotiations in this agreement, we came up with 5 principles we realized that we should be using, which are on the next slide. And that's that we should have challenging tender requirements on minimum specifications and rewarding better offers. We do sharpen those requirements over time. We share this as a common approach in the market to create volume, but also to create for suppliers and contractors conditions to have a return on their investments to come up with more sustainable solutions. We allow for research and experiments and innovations into our own projects. And of course, we reward and we are willing literally to pay more for a more sustainable solution. And of course, we align with the steering committee, with the working groups. This is like easier said than done, because it's quite obvious that if you bring together all the procurement volume of those clients in the market, this will have influence. But the thing that you really have to do is to start doing so. So we also discuss on a regular basis with contractors the way that we are actually doing those, that we act according to those principles. If we are really that we act common in our tenders, so it's more easy for our contractors to act according to those new requirements. We aligned with the start of the buyer groups in the Netherlands, which is basically having the same aim. And can you come up with the next slide, please? So we do share knowledge amongst each other to create more speed in the way that we learn. And especially with the new instruments that are developed in the working groups of the Beton Accord. Well, what can I say more? We do share successful examples from projects. We share innovations, so we make it more effective, that not every innovation is put in practice in too many different projects, that we do this more effectively. And we develop a format to report in according to the same formats. And actually on the next slide, which is most important, this is what we need. Because what we see is that we already have some developments in the market which can bring us more sustainable solutions, but to reach the targets that we agreed upon, we need new solutions. So from our side, we have to create this investment climate for our suppliers to come up with more and sustainable solutions. We have to accept those in our projects, and we have to align with each other to coordinate the implementation of those innovations. And actually, the contractors should come up with those innovations, and they should perform research to come up with it. And the last one, which is about monitoring and reporting, we are quite used to report on costs and time schedules and risks, but as public clients, I think we are still very minor in reporting on sustainable indicators. And also this reporting we should start to do in a common way to make it more easy for ourselves, but also for our suppliers. And I believe this is the end of my pitch. Boudewijn.
Thank you so much, Jack. We come back to you later when we have the discussion, but I understand that Michael is back in our session. Let's try, Michael. Are you here? And I'm glad you can present about the globe consensus.
Yes, thank you very much, Jacqueline. Sorry for not being able to find the link in due time, but here I am, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to have a little time here to present the globe consensus on sustainability in the built environment. Can you change? Yeah. So I only have a few minutes, so I will set the scene very briefly. You all know it, basically. But then I will describe how the globe consensus initiated and more or less, but not in great detail, what it contains. But also point at possibilities, things we can go after jointly, and I will point to next steps. So please change again. As you all are very well aware, but I think people outside our spheres may not be so clear about, is that the built environment actually poses a very significant challenge with respect to sustainable developments. And of course, as professionals in this domain, we need to make sure that we take the right actions. Next, please. Numbers which you probably know very well. The built environment is very substantial. It comprises, last week there was new information out that what the humans have built in the world by now is more in weight than nature-based living organisms in the world. So now the human race is absolutely dominating the earth, also with respect to what has been built. In this slide here, I want to highlight that we have more than 1 million construction companies, and this is a carry-on information. Next, please. Because the construction sector, with all these actors, more than 1 million contractors alone, is problematic. And it's problematic because it's organized in a decentralized manner. There are no integrative organizations between service providers, owners, and clients. And as we all know, there has been a long time focus on budgets and efficiency rather than real quality the way we understand it. And there has also been a very limited attention to use of material. And as we all know, standard codes and guidelines, they are moving slow relative to the rapidly increasing technological advances. Next, please. One very bold statement: if we were to be stuck with present best practice technology, the way we have been doing things up till now, then sustainable development would actually necessitate that we really consider to build as little as possible. Next, please. And that was the starting point for a workshop we had in Tongji University in 2019 between the Joint Committee on Structural Safety and the International Joint Research Center for Engineering Reliability and Stochastic Mechanics. And that at that event, we developed a consensus document relating to sustainability in the built environment. Next, please. And this consensus document was brought back to the liaison committee. The liaison committee organizing joint matters of interest between RILEM, IABSE, FIB, CIB, ECCS, and IASS. And the joint committee was given the mandate to try to establish a consensus between these associations, and for that purpose, a special task force was established, and a number of meetings were held. In 2020, in the summer, the consensus was reached, and by October, the GLOBE consensus, which it is now called, emerged and was released. Next, please. The experts in this special task force are listed here. But more experts are very welcome. I will come back to that. Next, please. So one of the messages in the GLOBE consensus document is that nothing less than a transformative and united worldwide effort from all stakeholders of the construction sector is really required in order to ensure that human society be successful in sustainable development and in the mitigation of disastrous consequences of climate change at global and local scales. Next, please. And the content of the consensus document are touching upon these points here. So the objective and main messages, a little bit about the sustainability challenge, but then the call for a new paradigm for governance of the built environment, and pointing at facilitators and actions which aim to improve sustainability in the built environment. And then finally, a call for immediate action. Thank you. Next, please. So next steps, and the final slide here in my limited time. The GLOBE network is a very substantial international global network supported by the 6 associations: RILEM, IABSE, FIB, CIB, ECCS, and IASS. And they represent more than 150 nation states and tens of thousands of experts of relevance in this domain, the built environment and sustainability. But not only that, also industrial partners, national associations. And the GLOBE network is offering its assistance in principle to all stakeholders of the built environment at both global or supranational and national scales. And this is an invitation to contribute and support the GLOBE. We are just in the beginning of trying to help the world by improving sustainability in the built environment. And this year is really an invitation for collaboration. And you will find much more information on the GLOBE homepage, which is hosted at RILEM at this address, as you see.
Thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And probably we come back to you later as well.
No, probably, certainly.
Certainly. Well, I don't know how the discussion will go. That's fine. Well, I'd like to introduce the next speaker, and that is Kietlien Dietz from ICLEA, Eco Pro Cures. and Procura, sorry. And she will talk about the big buyers for climate and environment.
Many thanks, Jacqueline, for the organization and the introduction. Yes, I'm Caitlin Dietz. I'm a construction engineer working for eCLAY, Local Governments for Sustainability. We are a network that works together with municipalities, and I particularly am working for the sustainable economy, circular economy, and procurement team. Next slide, please. So the Big Buyers Initiative is actually from the DG GROW of the European Commission, and it's managed and run by eCLAY and EuroCities. And the purpose of this is to form a collaboration between buyers for strategic public procurement to drive the market for innovation and sustainable goods and services. And in this sense, it's very similar to what Jack has presented on the Beton Accord, that we are trying to pool the purchasing power of the municipalities to strengthen their impact on the European market. Next slide. So the Big Buyers Initiative in its first phase already went on. For the past year and a half, we had 3 working groups of 5 to 15 buyers. 2 of which are relevant for the construction sector. First, zero emission construction sites, focusing on large electrified construction machinery to achieve zero emission works. And that was led by the city of Oslo. And secondly, the circular construction materials working group led by the city of Vienna, in which we looked at different ways of procuring reused or recycled content for new constructions, as well as procuring demolition works in a way that salvages and can maintain the quality of materials. And also at how public sector actors can play a role in the wider construction ecosystem with infrastructures or methodologies in coordination to facilitate the recirculation of construction materials. Next slide, please. So since the first phase ended in October, we are now launching a second phase of the Big Buyers project. This one will run for the next 2 years, and 4 new areas of collaboration will be established. This will be determined in a bottom-up way. So according to any public authorities, any buyers that engage with this needs assessment, according to which sectors come out as the most of interest, then we will establish 4 working groups around this with the same type of activity, including joint market engagement and raising awareness and visibility of the sector at the European scale, as well as joint preparation for procurement procedure, such as exchanging market intelligence, comparing tender criteria, and joint preparation for procurement procedures, and then the following and feedback on the pilot activities happening with the different buyers. Next slide. So these are, again, the possible activities to engage in leading up even to joint procurement. There may also be opportunities for training and capacity building for innovation and sustainable procurement of the buyers that take part. Next. And the advantages of taking part in an initiative like this one, first and foremost, is the exchange of best practice with peers across the EU, really at the forefront of innovation in your sector. Leveraging a higher purchasing power and impact on the market by approaching market actors jointly as a united group of buyers, and sharing of methodologies really on how to do circular procurement and sustainable procurement with tools such as environmental product declarations or life cycle analysis tools to strengthen the transparency, the validity and certified nature of the procurement procedures. It's also a way to be in tune with the latest developments and latest guidance and policy landscape at an EU scale. And of course, this would all be supported. The collaboration is supported from the European Commission and by ICLE and Eurocities as facilitators of the collaboration. We hope to have physical meetings and site visits again once that's allowed. Next slide. So the needs assessment procedure will happen over the next few months. Currently, we have a quick and simple survey open in which any buyer can input the unmet procurement needs they would like to participate in a working group around. One of these could be construction. So we invite you, if you would like to work further on low carbon construction materials such as concrete, to input that into this survey. And in the next 2 months, in January and February, we would then narrow down those areas of collaboration to finally kick off the working groups next March. Thank you very much.
Well, Kietlien, very, very interesting. And I like to ask Jack to give a first response, because there is quite some similarity in the things we are doing in the context of the concrete agreement and what Kietlien is saying about procurement.
Well, absolutely true. And as we started our initiative already quite some years ago, we were happy to learn this year that we have a national buyer group initiative. And even better, at the last couple of weeks of this year, we learned that there's even a European initiative for buyer groups. And I think it makes much sense to combine all those. And we can be very concrete with Diederik Heij, our Secretary of the Buyer Group for Sustainable Concrete. And I think we should make Kietlien and Diederik be in touch with each other.
Yeah, very good. Thank you so much. We continue the list of speakers, and I'm very pleased to introduce Evelien Goosen of ABT, and she will talk about the value of design, reducing CO2 and materials.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for the introduction. I'm Evelien Goosen. I'm a structural engineer at ABT. This is a Dutch engineering firm. And I'd like to talk to you about the value of design, which possibilities we have in the design stage to reduce materials and thus reducing CO2. And next slide, please. What we see in our projects is a shifted focus from energy to materials. If we want to build buildings with zero impact, this is very important. We need not only our buildings to be energy neutral, but also environmental neutral. Next, please. And the structure is very important in this, because the material use of the structure is about 50 to 60% of the material use in all buildings. Next, please. So you can see that the influence of a structural engineer is quite big in this. If all structural engineers would reduce their carbon footprint in their structures by 20%, you can see what a big influence that would be. If compared to stop driving their car or cut meat from the diet, it has a much bigger impact. Next, please. And I want to focus now on what we can do to reduce. Like Jacqueline told about the R ladder, that if we look at the reduce of materials, the type of materials, we can reduce our carbon footprint or environmental price. And it's important to monitor and control all materials we use during the design process. Next, please. We can do this by design optimization. This is an example with a mid-mill foundation in which we did advanced calculations. And there we were able to not only reduce the size of the foundation element, but also reinforcement needed in the element. And this made a reduction of carbon footprint of more than 30%. So first we did the calculations to reduce the carbon footprint, but then we also looked at the concrete mixture. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And next, please. Another project in which we did design optimization is the National Military Museum, in which we were able to reduce the steel structure of the roof by 40%. And we also had to use advanced calculations for this. Oh, sorry. Because there were a lot of design stages, a lot of different calculations that had to be done, so it couldn't be done by hand. And also by optimizing this, we could really optimize the steel structure. So also having a huge impact on the environmental impact of this project. Next, please. What we also do is we try to look at our projects live. What's the environmental impact? So we developed a plugin for our 3D models with the environmental database to live see in our models what is the environmental impact. And by doing this, we can use this in the design stage to make decisions. Next, please. Like we made a study of columns, for instance. We looked at a lot of different columns with the same principles, and then looked how can we, which columns has the least environmental impact. And what you see for concrete columns, that's the really optimum between the concrete strength, the reinforcement you use, and the size of the column. So it's really important to look at all these things when you try to minimize your environmental impact. Next, please. And we not only look at elements, we also look at whole buildings. So this is an example of a new residential building in Amsterdam. Next, please. Here we looked at the carbon footprint of the concrete mixture. So we subscribed a green concrete mixture. And by doing this, we could reduce about 1 million kilograms of CO2. You can compare this by driving around the world like 150 times by car. So you can see only in this building, by subscribing a green and concrete mixture, what you already can do, what you can gain. Next, please. So if you look at these concrete mixtures, it's very important that you collaborate, because not only the structural engineer can do this, you have to discuss this with the contractor, with the concrete technologist, and let's come to a design that is the optimum, because it's, for instance, if you choose a green or concrete mixture, the starting strength can be different, can be lower. So you have to take this into account in the design stage. I've given you some examples of what you can do in the design stage. I hope you're a bit inspired to really start with this at the beginning of the design stage, because there are a lot of possibilities. There's a lot to gain. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Evelien. And I was curious when I listened to you whether Kathleen also includes concrete mixture problems and design aspects in what you are doing until now. Can you answer to that? Probably.
Evelien, I don't know if Evelien is still there.
Yeah, sorry.
No, but Kathleen.
Yeah, that's because I thought the question wasn't for me. No.
Okay. No, sorry, then I continue and go to Thomas Rom. He is architect living in Vienna, and I'm curious to know what he's going to tell about recycling and reduced carbon concrete procurement approaches. The floor is.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for the invitation. Our presentation will continue tomorrow and after tomorrow. We are a small consortium and we're going to present our research on reduced carbon concrete. But first, I like to talk a little bit about our procurement approach. Next slide, please. Yeah. Our architectural practice in Vienna has a strong expertise in environmental impact of construction, and since about 15 years now, we are consulting ÖkoKauf, Eco by Vienna, the green procurement program of the city of Vienna. So in 2005, the city council started a 3-year research project on construction logistics. And that was leading us to a design of resource strategies for the fast growth of Vienna. And this was culminating in 2015. And this is what you see here on the image, when we were coordinating the initial phase of the Seestadt, Aspern, a major city development area for 20,000 people, 20,000 inhabitants and 20,000 workplaces. So our work has been published, and even in English, as you see, in the Manual of Recycling last year in 2019. Next slide, please. So our strategy was a double approach, a double input approach. First of all, we reduced the masses by optimizing a mass balance, by simply lifting up the street levels and using local material in order to reduce excavation. So this was the urbanistic approach. But then in the first construction phase, which you see here on the left down, of 3,000 housing units, we used or reused or recycled, as you wish, you name it, 1.5 million tons of local material to build these first 3,000 housing units by just procuring the logistics of it, and for a bunch of 20 developers and 25 plots of construction, and a mobile concrete unit processing these local materials, which you see on one hand coming from the little lake here, and on the other hand coming from the excavation material of the housing. Yes, one more word. So the result was that we could, in fact, have 100% locally produced concrete on site with a double unit, with a maximum capacity of 200 cubic meters per hour. This was the largest ever seen in Austria. And finally, and next slide, please. We were asked in the next years to scale this down to single housing projects like high rises, and worked this out. And so it came to the point that we had an engagement for Nordbahnhof, which you see here on the right hand. Another 3,000 housing units are going to be built in 2020 to 2022. And yeah, so in that case, we were asked from, this is, can you see my cursor here? This is this special high-rise being part of the whole development area, to have a look on reduced carbon concrete for Strabag, for this Strabag building. Strabag Real Estate asked us to, what we have learned from ICLAI, by the way, and the Big Buy initiative, that European context is approaching and proceeding in the question of reducing carbon in concrete. So we had a research program ongoing with the start of the year in March. And next slide, please. So we had a look on this special high-rise being part of this housing structure. And we looked on the elements in the BIM model, and we identified possible elements to reduce concrete, to reduce carbon in concrete with the equivalent performance concrete concept, which I learned from Boudewijn in the first time I heard about this in Nijmegen at Ecopolcura when I met Boudewijn. So next slide, please. The result of this experience ongoing, this is our summer series on the construction side, where we are testing and doing a risk assessment and cost assessment of clinker reduced concrete. So we have these fillers, these usual fillers as blast furnish and fly ashes to reduce the clinker in it, and therefore to reduce carbon. Next slide, please. These concretes, these RCC concrete is very sensitive to low temperature, and this is why we have to go on with this experiments now in winter times, and to compare and to see if these results within the standard, the existing standards, can be achieved. And this is the second experiment we are actually doing right now at the Mischek Systembau, a fabric prefabrication plant near Vienna. And the recipe, the conventional recipe you see on the left side, and it's using about 250 kilograms of clinker. And our recipe now, which is still not the very end, is about 180 kilogram of clinker. So you can reduce 46 kilogram per cube meter concrete. And next and last slide, please. So we are procuring now, we have the plan to procure with the EPDs and just compare these recipes with the conventional LCA EPD existing for any kind of concrete. Like here, it's an exposure of C37, which which has in the production phase, in the A phase, a conventional concrete is producing 236 kilogram of CO2 per cube meter. And with our reduction, we can reduce within the norm, within the normative approach, within the equivalent concrete concept approach, at least 20% for this case. Thank you.
Wonderful to hear, Thomas. We really like to share your experiences in putting all our innovations in practice in the Netherlands, because there are many similarities in the kind of activities that you are carrying out and that we are planning or already carry out as well. So thank you so much. I come back to you later, but I first want to give the floor to Martijn van Leeuwen, of NIBE, and he will talk about environmental shadow cost indicator tools for setting contracts. Welcome, Martijn.
Yeah, thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you, Boudewijn. Thank you for the opportunity to present some of our work that we've done in the Netherlands in the last 10 years. I've made a very brief presentation for you. And I see my screen. You see it as well, I think. So next slide, please. The Netherlands. There is something funny about our country, and that is that because the significant industry that we have and the limited area that we have, and living in a delta here in the close to the North Sea, with the main rivers flowing through us, and we have a big agricultural and chemical industry, we experience one of the, I think, strongest man-made pressures on natural environment in the world, and that has made our country very conscious of this issue. So we are very much aware that we have an influence on our national environment, and we have all kinds of policies and measures in place, including a focus on environmental performance for many years, and including a green public procurement based on LCA data for at least 10 years. So next click. Yes. So we are. It's not strange, I think, that we are a front runner in environmental performances in both policies and also in procurements, because we need to. Actually, we feel a quite urgent need to get improvements because we experience the downside of it so heavily. Next slide. So we've put up this system, and it's very much the same as you would imagine, but there are maybe two significant differences that I would like to point out. We have a national database. It runs on LCA data or EPD data, both generic and specific. So we have a generic set in there, average set. We have specific data from branch industry data and specific producer data from specific producers. And you can run and design through approved software systems that connect to the database. And no matter which software you use, you get the same result, basically. So we have about 5 or 6 or even 7 software packages that are available. They are commercially available, so there is competition in the software, so you can make your own choice. And they give out a result. But we do something funny with the result. We add it up to a single point indicator. And this is really important, I think, because in an LCA or in an EPD in Europe, there are at least 7 environmental effects that are calculated. And with the new norm in place, there will be 19 environmental effects. So if we don't weigh them and summarize them into a single score, there is no way you can take into account all those environmental effects. And then basically you have only the choice to take one of them, for instance, carbon, and only focus on carbon. But we feel it's too limited because we also have a significant issue with nitrogen, with nitrogen depositions in our areas. So we want to have a more integral approach, taking into account all the major environmental effects that we feel are important and weighing them in a single indicator. And this is something we call the environmental cost indicator. And you see it on the right side of the screen, and it has a value in euros because it is a kind of a estimation of the mitigation or associated social costs associated with the environmental effects that we calculate in the LCA. So, for instance, global warming potential with carbon as an emission factor. Expressed in CO2 equivalents, it has a contribution factor of 50 euros per ton of carbon emitted. And so all the environmental effects have a factor like this, and we can add it up to a single point indicator. Well, there are pros and cons. I think the experts can set up a debate for hours about what are the downsides and what are the upsides of a method like this. But the single most important thing is, I think, that it is very easy to implement in procurement and in contracts. And that is what we did. So yeah, next slide, the system. Next slide, one click. So we have a national method for LCA for constructions, and it is based on the European norm. We express it as a single point to get a total cost, total environmental cost indicator in euros. And we have done 2 things. First, we have set a legislation setting a maximum value of this environmental cost indicator per square meter per year for all types of buildings, or mainly residential buildings and office buildings at the moment, but the others will follow, I think, shortly. So you will not get a permit if you are over this value. This is an important mechanism in our market, so that you need to show and you need to prove that you build and construct under this value. And we have done another thing, and that is we use this environmental cost indicator in green public procurement as a criterion in the following way, so that we offer the contract to whoever has the lowest sum of price plus X time the environmental cost indicator. So if your price plus X time the environmental cost indicator for everything that is offered in the contract, if you are the lowest, you win the contract. It could very well be that your price may not be the lowest, but your environmental cost performance is the lowest, and that gives you, in the end, the contract. And X is being set by the nature of the contract, by the specifier, and it can be anything between 1 or 10. I've seen up to 10. I've seen 1 also. And typically, for concrete contracts for Rijkswaterstaat, we are around 4. So 4 times the environmental cost plus the price is the award-winning criterion for the contract. Next slide. So I make a few personal observations. In the sectors where the legal maximum values are used, so only the legal contracts, the legal maximum of €1 per square meter per year, we follow this closely. As in my company, we follow this every year, and we do about 4,000 LCAs per year. So we keep track of the performance of the industry. We see little or no improvement. So apparently, this maximum value and this law that we have, this legislation, has no impact on the way we build, and we don't build any more greener or more sustainable than we did before. In those areas where the formula that I showed you in the tendering is used, that gives a benefit of winning the contract, we see overall improvements of at least 10%, and we see up to 40% in certain sectors. So those are enormous. 40% improvement in 5-year time, that is enormous. So there is a big movement and a lot of things are going on in those areas where these contracts are used. And we also see an upward price effect. We did it with a few specifiers, and we saw in their contracts it's hard to be precise because there are also normal price fluctuations and there's conjuncture, there's a economic up and downturns, but we estimate that there's an overall upward price effect on the goods that are purchased between 0 and 5%. So that shows me that that previous slide showed me that having a legal minimum value or maximum value for construction has no use. Having it in contracts and giving a award-winning criterion, so making a better chance of winning the contracts, works perfectly. So the route forward must be in green public procurement and by getting it into the contracts. And there's one last item that we learned, and that's this slide. Since the contract values, the contracts that are associated with this mechanism that we are awarding in this way, they go up to 600 million or more. So there are huge contracts, and the commercial interest is significant for this. We see that we need to be tougher on ensuring that the data are correct. It's too easy to cheat in normal language. So we found that it was necessary that a third-party verified EPD is not enough. It should be followed up with a factory inspection protocol that we've put in place, at least for one industry, where the factories are inspected and we ensure that the production is in line with the production that is used to declare the EPD. So that, for instance, in a concrete factory, the type of cement that they use and the amount of cement that they use in a certain contract mixture is correct. And it is the same as that is used in the EPD to calculate the environmental performance. This is really necessary because otherwise we feel that there will be too much deviations and it will not be a reliable system. So there is a presentation that is broadcasted. It's 30 minutes in English. The whole system is explained by myself. You can look it back, and the inspection protocol can be downloaded from the link that is in this slide.
Thank you so much, Montaigne. This whole idea of using the environmental cost indicator is also quite a crucial aspect of the concrete agreement in the Netherlands, and is also used, and I ask Jack to reply, in the contracting procedures that are being developed among the commissioning parties. Can you respond to that, Jack?
Well, that's actually precisely what we do. And according to the principles I presented already earlier, is that we, together with all the public clients, we discussed the way we use this indicator. And we also agreed that we should sharpen this criteria over time. And given the fact that we do this all together, we actually stand for quite a large volume of concrete procurement in the Netherlands. And this really has an effect. And secondly, we also discuss on a regular basis with contractors and suppliers if we are doing this in the right way. And one of the first things we got back from them is that we were not consequent in using this indicator. And at first I thought that they meant that we were doing it differently, but they were actually talking about the first step, that we were not all doing so. So some of us were using the way, as Montaigne just explained, with rewarding better offers for this criteria. But some of us were not even using this indicator in our tenders. So that was the first step to improve. And as soon as everybody is using it, we can start to follow the line of sharpen this criteria and rewarding our contracts on better offers and start innovation by doing so. which
Okay,
is
so
could
much.
be important to do.
Yes, yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, we talked a lot about green public procurement, and not only public, but also a private procurement, I would say, because these are also very important commissioning parties. And today we mainly focus on that because they play a crucial role in making the concrete sector more sustainable in all respects. And that is also what the concrete sector tells us when we talk about it. They say when the contractors ask for the environmental cost indicators, as just discussed, then we have to respond to that. And if there is not a level playing field, it is harder for us. So they actually look at the contractors and say, okay, join forces and make sure that you are doing your utmost to join and to make sure that everybody participates and that the level playing field is created. But I like to give now the floor to you, Boudewijn, because you like to explain in more detail why public procurement should and can change the game. Go ahead.
Yes, I have a short presentation about public procurement. This was our minister said, clearly she was supposed to open the event in Nijmegen, where I met Thomas, that the public procurement are the game changers. That very clear and loud, and I'll try to explain why, okay? Next. They pay for it. So they should decide how it goes. It's very simple. And next. Yeah, next is my name. The next. Okay. Here are some key factors. It's 1/3 of the construction is taxpayers. We have an increasing demand on infrastructure because of climate adaptation. So there will be more and more infrastructure problems to be solved. We have, and those are all, of course, public. The sustainable structures are at lower cost if you really do it the way ABT is doing and other structural engineers look at it. And this is an interesting comparison from Professor De Sitter. If you would invest €1 upfront, you will save 125 if you would have to replace it. It's as simple as that. So now the question is, of course, who is interested in replacing it? That is the key, that is a problem. Next, please. Now, this is a 5-year-old EN206 standardized concrete, low competence, supplier driven. Okay, repair is a way of making money. Next, please. This is almost 2,000 years old. No standards, but very, very well designed from material point of view. Next, please. Okay. The problem is, of course, that we are not all cities are like The Hague, where you have specialized people who understand the technicalities. You have smaller villages, and they need a hand. So they should rely on material neutral designers, the structural engineers and architects in a certain way. But they expect the suppliers also to know what has been delivered. The question now is, are both parties well informed? Okay, if you look at premature failures, around less than 20% is material composition, 30% mistakes are in structural design, and more than 50% execution on site. We'll talk about that on practice on Thursday, because it's a key aspect. But the material composition and structural design, that should be in the hands of the structural engineer. The standards are prescriptive, not performance-based, and set by dominant cement and aggregate suppliers. Next, please. What can we ask the European Commission? I'm very happy, by the way, to see that there was, let's this one first, maybe. Okay, let me see if yes, Martin, I should not get touch the buttons, but I will do it anyway. Okay, on the screen, where is it? Where am I now? Oh, there it is. The problem is that we have okay, where is it? Where am I? There am I. The problem, what we have is basically that you see we have the client, the structural engineer with sustainability engineering coming into effect. And they have information from all the lobbies. You get the contractor, subcontractor, the suppliers, the concrete producers, suppliers, the cement and aggregate producers. And they have a very strong influence on the whole structure because they determine standards. They are always on the table when concrete standards are being established. And I can tell quite a story about what happened in Brussels. In 2011, the person who was admitted that he made the wrong standard, this was in 2011, but it's still there. Okay, and the standard for the cement. You have the lobby group, you have the sponsoring, and even universities. I know one particular country where 9 out of the 10 universities don't dare to do anything because they get sponsored by the cement lobby. I don't blame the cement lobby. I probably would have done the same, okay, if I would be in their place. But we cannot go on like this. So we need the European Commission to get involved. So my request is to the European Commission and to Ursula von der Leyen, please work out this European Bauhaus idea you launched on the 14th of October. So this could be an inter-directorate general sustainable construction plan. The second question, correct environmental and friendly standards. And the third, recognize the CO2 reduction potential of concrete, which is for me amazing that the European Commission talks about many things, but construction should be the thing they should talk about every day because it's the biggest one. So next, I think, okay. Oh yeah, I'd like you also to talk about the what the Bouw Circulaire of Dave de Kok, who's our hosting, by the way, this session. But I'd like to see the other one first. Yes, okay. They started with concrete groups, very local, and then more regional, about recycling concrete. It might not be on the ladder Jacqueline mentioned, it's place number 9, but it's an easy one to get into it. People really say, okay, if you recycle concrete, that is the best thing to do. Well, in Vienna it was, and in another place it's not. So you really have to look at it from the situation, but it is the best way of getting this done. The next one, please. The other one. Yes, this I just saw this morning, so I didn't train myself on looking at it, but it's a whole, let's say, ecosystem of getting things done. And I think I will leave it like that for the moment. We'll come back on this, by the way, on Thursday, about the ecosystem, I think, which would be the solution to the strange problem we have that in a healthy market, there is only one party that says what quality is, and that's the client, the customer, and not the supplier, and certainly not the supplier of the supplier. But that happened to be the case, and that's the way it worked out. I'm not blaming for taking advantage of the situation, but it's not good for us. Now, please, I'd like to open the floor to whoever feels like posing questions. Please go ahead.
Do you like the people to respond to the question about the role of the European Commission, or do you want to broaden the discussion? So let's first see whether there are still questions or remarks to be made in general. Yes?
Yes, please.
Yes. Who likes to raise a question or make a remark? Can you raise your virtual hand? Then we can see who is in the audience. Then I need to see who is raising a hand. I don't see anybody who is willing.
Dirk Wagner, Loopfront, Berlin.
Dirk. Okay, go ahead, please.
Yes. Thank you. I have one question to Martin van Leeuwen. You briefly talked about the software systems. I have a twofold question. Like on your slide, is the software system you talked about, is that kind of the idea? Is that a kind of an operating system or a management system? So kind of the digital infrastructure here, or are these more like software apps that you spoke about?
Okay, Martijn, can you answer?
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Yeah, good question. Thank you. The software that I pointed out there is actually software to make a calculation. So more an app to do the calculation for a construction work or a building. But we have also a software infrastructure designed. It can connect to BIM software, so to building information systems. So there is a potentially broader use of the system, so that you connect it to calculation software or design software, which is not done so much yet, but I think it will come a lot more in the coming years. So then it's a bit more than just an app. It is also a protocol, exchange protocols, data structure protocols, and a classification system for it.
And is that a tailor-made system, or is that something? So is that something you build yourself, or
no? It's a national standards. We made a national standard system for it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, and is it publicly available? Perhaps people like to know that. Martijn?
Yes. It's not published, but it can be requested by Stichting National Environmental Database that we have, and they give out the protocols and the data formats, so that if you want to make use of it, they also license the system, so it's under license in the end if you want to make use of it in your own software or in your own systems. So yeah, not really publicly available, but it can be obtained from the supervisor of the system.
Can it become a European way of doing things?
Who like to? Oh, Martijn, can you answer?
Sorry.
Yes, Boudewijn, it could, because there is also a European data format that is already in place for exchanging numerical data from EPDs. So exchanging EPDs in a software system. There is a new European data system that is approved by everybody now. It's in-data data format system. It's inspired on the German data structure of the Ecobaudat and the IBU database, but that is also now raised to a standard with all EPD programs in Europe. That is the basis to do the data exchange. And then we need also a building classification model agreement, and this is not in place, so that it could connect to building products classifications in BIM software.
Okay, thank you so much. I'd like to continue to a next question or remark. It can be about performance-based procurement.
Yes,
question.
I raised my hand.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Good, thank you. I'm Kolawole Olonode from Lagos, Nigeria. It is my pleasure to be part of this platform, and I really appreciate the organizer of this event. It has been a very eventful event. My observation generally is that I could see that a lot of effort is being made, especially in the Europe, to reduce the CO2. But when we come to Africa, where we still need enormous need to bridge the infrastructure deficit, and the trend is still they are still using cement, and a lot of cement and manufacturing plants are being established on a daily basis, and everybody is still using cement. What effort are the researchers in the Europe are making to collaborate with the researchers in Africa so as to be able to be on the same page? If you look at the landmass of Africa in terms of population, we find that Africa is extremely big. It even takes the whole of Europe, the whole of China, the whole of even America. So whatever effort we are making globally, if Africa is not really taken along in the same path, perhaps the Africa may be drawing all this effort back. In the issue of this globe, the globe consensus, I wouldn't know what effort the consensus, the people, the task force are making to really say that we have also African for a voice in it. This is very, very important. And yes, I've been collaborating with Dr. Wolfram. Hopefully she is going to present one of the topics we are really working, the little effort we are making locally in Nigeria is going to present on our behalf tomorrow too. But this is just my concern for all the stakeholders in CO2 reduction in the world. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for your comment. And Wolfram, can you respond to that?
Wolfram is on the screen. Wolfram,
yes, I just unmuted myself.
Yeah.
Yes, certainly. Well, it was more a statement rather than a question in this point of view. And first of all, I fully have to confirm what Kolawole was saying, that in the entire global discussion about the use of construction materials, whatever discipline we are talking about, it's not only binders for concrete, it includes everything what is related to construction and value chains and supply chains. Africa is pretty much ignored in all the international committees, and looking at the fact that well, huge urbanization processes will take place in Africa, whether we want it or not. I mean, we can discuss a lot about materials reduction in Europe in a specific framework with using specific software and so on, some policies and so on related to this. But the place where the real construction is going on, and it has to go on because the population is just tremendously growing, this is taking place in Africa. So I think it is necessary for whatever comes up in the next future in terms of policies, in terms of regulations, standards, and so on. It has to consider that we are working in a global world and that everything has to have an impact on every place in the world. So I think we have to step out of this nation box and we have to really step into the world and make our considerations, our technology really fit for global challenges. I mean, that's where we have to go, definitively. Yes. And this is also one of the concerns that I had in the very beginning, Jacqueline, when you presented about the beton accord or concrete accord or concrete consensus, how is it called? Beton accord, right? It's the Dutch name.
In Dutch, it's beton accord, but I say in English, the Dutch concrete agreement.
Concrete, okay. I did my PhD in the Netherlands and I always adored the Dutch people as a German, how much your focus was on saving resources. We are basically a country which is rather blessed with construction materials compared to the Netherlands. And I always adored the spirit and the consensus mindset in the Netherlands to try to find solutions to be very sustainable, much more than we are in Germany. But at the same time, when I see the flowcharts of this consensus and the decision-making processes and so on, I always see that there's a lot of new bureaucracy coming up. And I'm certainly biased from Germany, where we cannot survive without any standard and without any regulation that gives us clear limits and frameworks. It's just in our genes. But I've got the feeling this is the biggest block of innovation, that in the meantime, we are so over-regulated. And even if we're trying to find new networks, new frameworks to create more sustainable construction ideas, at the end of the day, we always put up a new network and a new structure and a new flowchart and a new limitation. So whenever we put a regulation, we also put a number of restrictions and degrees of freedom, because everything that is within this regulation can be made, even though it is probably bad technology. And everything which is probably a good technology cannot be used as long as it's not within the framework of these regulations. So I've got the feeling the real step into the future would be to minimize the bureaucracy to a minimum, but still certainly we need a framework. So it's a very challenging thing. So it's not a question, it's not an answer, it's just a statement where I believe we have to go into the future.
Well, you actually provoke me to answer briefly and tell you that our approach is not bureaucratic. It is focused on getting things done. And we join forces, particularly among the commissioning parties, to make sure that the environmental cost indicator and the performance-based contracting becomes the standard for everybody, which is the minimum. And of course, everybody can ask for more if they want, but this is the basis for which we hope that everybody will conform to. And secondly, the concrete sector itself is also focused on not getting a bureaucratic system on regulation, but actually see what is needed, what kind of regulation is needed for the specific applications, where we have very general standards and regulations, while for the different types of application, you might be quite flexible in what kind of standard you use in terms of the amount of cement and also of the amount of other materials used. So of course, we are known in the world as the polar country, where we are used to work together in triple helix constellations. But in this particular case of the concrete agreement, yes, we work in a triple helix, but we work very focused. And we focus on the objectives that we have formulated. That is our goal. We want to make sure that we reach the goals we have set and what is needed to do that. So let's not discuss the whole concrete agreement, but take the piece which is now the focus of the webinar, and that is the idea also put forward by Boudewijn about the here on the flip over, as we call it, and that is the performance-based contracting, which is in contrast with the regular way we organize the contracting system. Is there somebody who likes to respond to that particular point?
Nobody?
Is there, yeah, Jack, do you want to respond?
Well, there is actually something else that crossed my mind because of this discussion, is that since we are now having many different countries and cultures connected in this meeting, it might be relevant to give attention to, let's say, the human factor, which also includes cultures. So I don't have the name of the speaker just earlier, I think from Germany, who mentioned the German habit to need regulations and standards, etc. That's quite different in the Netherlands, and that is probably even different in Belgium or Africa for sure. And if we want somehow to combine our efforts to move this sector forward, and I'm absolutely not a specialist in this field, it might be because at the end of the day, humans have to do this, right? All of us have to do this. And I think it's interesting to learn from each other how this works in different cultures.
Yeah, okay, Dirk also wants to respond.
Yes, to both to Jack and Wolfram. This is actually why I believe it's so important to get in touch with municipalities, because I'm talking all the time to municipalities in Germany, and the experience I'm gaining is, yes, overall it is right, we Germans, we like regulation, but municipality by municipality, they take quite a different approach. And you find some municipalities who are very innovative and say, yes, you know, for instance, with the topic today, it's a complex topic, but there are things that we can start on immediately. And if you, just help us, take us by the hand, we can do the first steps, then we are ready as a municipality, to, when the biggest steps come, to do that. But my emphasis is that is why it's so important to get the municipalities engaged in, because there are some mayors and municipalities who are very innovative. Of course, they comply by the rules, but they are the key players, to my experience here.
Okay, thank
you. What we sometimes say in our city, and maybe other municipalities do the same, that we say that we are the first government, especially to companies and inhabitants. That's true. And I think we're also pretty close to concrete and practical action. But then still, the city of Berlin will act differently than The Hague is doing, or Vienna, or whatever. And I think it's very interesting to not only learn from each other from, let's say, the concrete and the material perspective, but also from the human perspective.
I think that you are very right, Jack, that it is very important to see in which culture, which kind of governance of the whole transition in the concrete sector can really work. And of course, that is different. So there is no blueprint how to do it. But of course, we can learn from each other in terms of the instruments that are useful in all contexts. And how you put them in place, that is, of course, related to your own cultural context. I like to come back to Boudewijn in the first place, remind you of the wonderful manual he produced, and he sent the manual around. You could respond to that, and thanks for the comments. But it's what he calls a living document, so please continue to give input, because we have to learn from each other in order to make the manual, also a manual, and that one of Boudewijn, even more useful for all kinds of contexts. But Boudewijn, you want to respond, and perhaps also reflect upon the first day, because we are going to a close, and I'd like you to take the floor to close the session and have the last word.
Yes, thank you very much. Maybe, well, that's a little dream, but you have to dream a little bit. Michael Faber, I think if we are able to mobilize all the organizations of the Globe consensus a little, then we might really get this going. A manual that has been written by all of us and belongs to all of us, at least to the front runners who have the right to claim it. But I also have a remark to Kathleen Dietz. Kathleen, I am very happy that I get the feeling that ICLE wants to go into the depths of the content of the before they were a very nice friendly organization, but now I see that they're really doing something on getting into the detail and the nitty-gritty of the construction site. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. I think having someone who speaks the lingo in the specific technical sector, especially when it comes to market dialogues and engaging between municipal actors, as you rightly highlighted, who do not always have the full technical understanding. It's really nice to be able to play that role of mediator and facilitator of these processes at the innovation forefront.
Okay, thank you so much. Well,
I have lots of questions still for a lot of people, but I think we will deal with that later, because I have the feeling, or at least the hope, that this is just the beginning, and maybe that we get the allowance from everybody to exchange emails if possible. We'll do so. So
okay,
basically,
well, we hope to see you tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, and have a nice evening or afternoon, depending on where you are on Earth. Thank you for your presence here and your kind way of listening to what we have presented. Thank you so much.
thank you.
Thank you too.
Thank you.
Thank you too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kola. Thank you, everybody. I see on the screen. Many of them I know, but new people are as much welcome. Thank